So what I'd like to know, Amber, is what is an end user organization's first path on the journey to open source with Open Compute?
You have to want to change. You have to want to scratch an itch, if you will, or you've got to have some problem that you're wanting to solve. And then you have to do the research to figure out how you solve that, and then partner with someone like Open Compute to drive that change, to bring your innovation into the organization, and then to put it back out to a greater community. Because everything that we do in Open Compute is open and it's transparent. So someone can't just come to Open Compute and say, I want to give this specification, but I don't want to open it up. Or I want to consume this specification, but I don't want anybody else to consume it. Everything that we do is completely open, and you have to be willing to participate and drive that change in an open and transparent manner. And that a lot of times scares an organization. Maybe scare isn't the right word, but they're very cautious, and that's not always how they've done things. They've always done it maybe siloed off and, with a tunnel vision, and not realizing that you can do things, and those things that you do live in perpetuity. And when they think about what they're going to be doing, then it's going to live in perpetuity, be it a comment on a mailing list or something at an event or a video that they're going, like this interview, something that will live in perpetuity. Sometimes you have to get them over that hurdle. So one of the first steps you have to be willing to do is realize that as an organization, you kind of have to put yourself out there. And where it makes sense and where it makes sense to collaborate, you collaborate. And where it makes sense to differentiate, you differentiate. We never want an organization to give up their bread and butter. But when you really break it down, they're parts of every hardware solution around the data center that are the same. There's only so many different ways you can do a rack. There's only so many different ways you can do power. There's only so many different ways, there's just, where is it the chip that needs to differentiate? Is it the software that runs it? Is it the, what needs to be the differentiator? And then how can we collaborate where we need to collaborate and differentiate where we need to differentiate? And we'll help you do that. But you as an organization have to figure out what itch you're trying to scratch, and then how we can help do that.
You gave an example of an itch an organization was trying to scratch. I think it was a financial organization that came to OCP with a problem. Can you tell us more about that and what the solution was?
So what this particular financial industry wanted, or organization wanted to do, was they wanted to convert to Open Compute. They wanted to convert to the specification, the V1 rack that Facebook had given with all the server and the storage and stuff for Facebook's contribution. But in order to do that, they had to move from an AC powered 19-inch rack to an AC/DC powered 21-inch rack for Open Compute. And the dimensions on the outside of the rack are the same. It's just the dimensions on the inside, how the bus bar or how the brackets get turned and stuff like that. And they wanted to do this over time, because they couldn't just build a new data center or change out an entire section of a data center to convert. So what they did was they created a rack that could either be set up and ordered in the format of an Open Compute rack, or it could be set up in the format of the 19-inch, legacy racks that we see all over the place. And so that way they could either take something that was already Open Compute and put it in place, and if they ever needed to, convert back, they could. Or if they had legacy hardware like blade servers, things like that needed to fit into a standard 19-inch rack, they could start there, convert that rack, and then populate it with Open Compute gear. And so they came up with that. That was an idea at a hackathon 2 years ago. From there, they went to the prototypes, and now we have 4 different vendors that make the Open Bridge Rack, which was contributed by Fidelity. So end users wanting to adopt, our technologies can innovate on top of it. Our licenses allow for that. We don't lock people out. You can go to the website, pick a spec, and go, I like this, but it doesn't quite work for us. Here's what we would change. You can make those changes and then give it back, and then you've just set another standard, if you will, of people to use Open Compute in a different way. Because when you look at Facebook and you look at web scale, that may not necessarily be the right thing for the enterprise level folks. It may not be the best, the way the server's configured and the way the CPUs run, and how it, switches and that kind of stuff may not be optimized for, say, enterprise or optimized for telcos and that sort of stuff. But you can take that, whether it's Microsoft's open cloud server, and innovate on top of that, whether it's Facebook's contribution for their complete rack solution and innovate on top of that. But you can take that, and we encourage people to take those, tell us what doesn't work, and let's see who we can get to prototype, who we can get to manufacture to make those changes so that it is a viable solution for a different industry.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of like this open hardware, if you will, to be able to take something, add your spin to it, and then give it back and let the world use what you've just created. Nobody says you have to use it just like this. Make your changes and give it back.
So I've got a quick question. In that context, how does a hackathon work? These are things I understand that happen at the Open Compute Summit. Mm-hmm. How do they work? When an organization like Fidelity comes along, do they come with an idea that they want the community to break, or do they come with just a very original concept that they want the community to make?
Both. So organizations come with already maybe they've looked at NOx, which is storage, and maybe they say, you know what, well, you want to take this storage device, but we want to make it even denser. How do we do that? And then they may come and invite people who maybe don't have a team, and say somebody's sitting out there says, I want to participate in this, I don't have a team, but they're working on storage. Hey, can I work with your team on this? So that, they can do that. Or they're sitting around the night before at the bar going, hey, wouldn't it be nice if? And then they walk into the hackathon and say, let's come out with even if it's just an idea and it's whiteboarded out and the concept is put down on paper, even if it just starts with that idea. So anywhere from an idea the night before and let's go whiteboard it out and see how we can make this a reality, to I'm going to show up with a partial idea and see what the community has to say about it and I want to contribute to it. Or okay, maybe somebody has this idea of what they want people to do, so they may invite vendors in to come and help them. So there's the whole gamut. And what you'll see at the next one in March, we actually have sponsors now to sponsor equipment that we're going to be bringing in, and to sponsor like if somebody wanted to work on, say, the server piece or the rack piece or the storage piece, we will actually have equipment there ready for people to hack on. So maybe they only have an idea, but they haven't laid hands on it or really seen it or whatever. They'll be able to this time. So we're really changing the format a little bit to have people just show up with an idea and then pick a team and then do that. So everything from organized to you organize it within minutes of showing up. So it works across the board.
Cool. So today you're up on stage with a number of the other open source organizations or different communities. There was OpenStack, the Open Network Foundation, Open Daylight, Open Power. They're all represented up on stage, and the conversation was going towards how different organizations can collaborate as open movements. Does Open Compute work with any of those other organizations at the moment, and how do they work with them?
So yes, so we're engaging with Open Power, we're engaging with the Open Network Foundation, we're where possible with the Linux Foundation. We actually a couple years ago used to co-locate our events with the Linux Foundation. OpenStack, we see a lot of folks in the community who take Open Compute hardware and OpenStack, that combination, and then how they do that, how they deploy it, how they optimize it, like all of those things, because we look at the hardware and then what runs on top of that hardware, and then how do people deploy what runs on top of that hardware. So we work with the whole of those foundations, and it starts with a relationship. Communities are relationships, and how you build those communities, whether it's at the executive level with the with the executive directors or the CEOs or whomever getting together to have an idea. And then that relationship that they have then trickles down to the communities. And the communities, a lot of the members who are members of those foundations are members of our foundation. And a lot of the folks that are members of our foundation, likewise, there's a lot of overlap. And so where someone's palette is, whether it's on the hardware side and designing hardware, or optimizing what runs on, say, a top of rack switch, or wherever, it depends on where their palate is, where their taste is for which organization, and which organization they feel like can further, you know, what they're wanting to do. And so we would encourage anyone to have the relationships, you know, make sure that relationship is strong, because no community is going to operate in a vacuum. If people don't get along and have a, you know, relationship together, then it doesn't go, you know, very far. But it starts with a conversation and then kind of trickles down, and it's what the community does with that information that comes back up. So it's an unplanned garden. You plant the seed, you know, like you think about, you know, birds dropping seeds different places, and people look and go, how did that flower grow there? Or how did that piece of corn grow there? Or whatever. It's because it was dropped there. And sometimes those unplanned gardens are the best. You know, it's just organic, and you really get the needs of the community to come back up. Because at one level we may have an idea of the direction that we think it should go, and so we plant that seed, but somebody says, that's a great plant, but it would look better over here. So the next time you plant it over there. And so it's really paying attention to the needs of the community, whether that is a manufacturing community, a vendor community who's selling stuff, the user community, the folks who design the hardware. If you can get the folks who design it and have a need to sit in the same room with the people who build it, who sit in the same room with the people who manufacture it or who sell it, then it's a win-win, and it's a relationship that's strong across all levels. I believe it was Callista that said, you know, we aren't gluing these communities together, we're weaving them together. So a weaved bond is a lot stronger than a glued bond. And so as we weave these communities together and form those bonds and those relationships, the world benefits from those thought leaders and that innovation and how we maintain our relationships with each other.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.